Good morning, Geshidocon. Bias, I think I feel the pain that you went through yesterday with the energy, right? So let's try again. Geshidocon, good morning. That's a little bit better. I am Linden Zietsman.
And I'm Suret Basson.
Bias and the IQ Business team, thank you so much for inviting us to speak at Geshidocon 2025. Yesterday, after hearing all the people speaking about AI, I went back and I actually typed out on Copilot, how can I reintroduce myself and how can I make this sound even better? And it came up with something like, we are delightful to be here today. And I thought, no, that's not going to work today. So we feel honored to be here amongst a group of forward thinkers that are not all just speaking about the future, but also actively helping to shape it. We really want to share with you today some of the learnings and experiments that we took upon ourselves to go back to Capitec with, based on industry learnings, based on things that we've learned from various frameworks, and not to mention the Geshido way.
Our story is one of constant evolution. I've been with Capitec for 16 years, starting out as a project manager, moving into portfolio management, enterprise portfolio management, and now I'm leading the delivery enablement team as a centralized function.
And I've been with the bank for the last 6 years. I joined them as an Agile coach. I became one of 2 trainers across the organization, moved into portfolio management for non-banking products, and now I'm part of the amazing team with Suret in the centralized delivery enablement team as a specialist.
To help us shape our story, we would like to reflect on the past and share with you our journey as to how we came to where we are today.
As Suret mentioned, our story really is one of evolution, but to help to tell the story, we need to go back in time. Let's go back pre-2001, when we saw the birth and the invention of the Gantt chart, Kanban, Scrum, XP, Crystal, many of the other frameworks out there. But it's really when we started seeing the limitations of this linear development methods, they started to become quite evident. Let's fast forward to 2001, when most of us will recall as the start or the birth of Agile. I don't need to tell you the story, but we all know about the 17 odd developers that went away to some ski resort. I wasn't part of it, I wasn't invited, I did not make the WhatsApp group, wasn't there. But they came back and they invented and they wrote the Agile Manifesto, which we all know consists of 4 values and 12 principles. Question, by show of hands, does anybody know exactly which dates they went away, or which date they went away and written the Agile Manifesto? Anyone? Does it matter? Don't know. Who knows, by show of hands, when Capitec was established? Anyone? Does it matter? Of course it matters. Crap, we're here. Obviously it matters. Capitec was established in March 2001, a month after the Agile Manifesto. So what's the correlation between the two? Anyone want to take a guess? Absolutely nothing. There's zero, it's by pure coincidence. But there is a possible connection between the two worlds. I think our story really is one of evolution. And it was really after 2001 where we really started seeing how Agile has evolved beyond just software development into other industries and organizations as well. Let's fast forward and go one level deeper. Let's look what happened beyond 2001. Where we started seeing how frameworks like Scrum and Kanban and scaled frameworks have gained prominence in implementing Agile principles. We see how Agile principles started becoming part of not just software development, but beyond software development in other industries and other areas of the organization. Shared services. We've seen the birth of hybrid approaches and how some of the elements of Agile and some of the elements of traditional approaches like waterfall have made it easier for tailored solution in some instances. And neither of the two are most important. There's room for both in the world. We've seen how Agile principles started influencing organizational structure, culture, leading to Agile leadership, further enhancing speed and precision through the integration with DevOps. But it was really when we look at the focus on continuous learning and the focus on experimentation that really started becoming central to the evolution of Agile. By 2021, more than 70% of organizations have adopted some way or form of Agile. We know this. Some of you are here. We have all started, we've all failed, we've heard your stories. So what if we've gone on a similar journey? What if we've implemented some way or form of Agile in our own world? There was still something that felt missing. We just couldn't quite hit the mark. And it was really the last 2 years for us that was a game changer. It was really the last 2 years for us that we took the learnings from WSBS off-site and we went back to our organizations and we started to think about things differently. And it's not that, and if I ask you the question, what changed? What happened 2 years ago? It's really, and some of you will say that, yeah, in 2023, 2 years ago, Geshidocon got started. Yeah, we know this, and there's some truth to that as well. But it was really the fact that we started paying attention to what was happening in the industry that made the difference. So far too often we find ourselves that Agile change management takes second seat by the very same leaders who want us to be Agile. Yeah? So how can we go about doing this? If I reflect on the key learnings from Geshidocon in 2023 and 2024, there was a couple of things that really stood out for us. I'm not going to speak to all of them because I can see this timer ticking quite angrily here at me, but there's a few that I do want to highlight. We hear that Sally Alada spoke about, if you want flow, stop the flooding. We heard about, don't leave people behind, Nahim mentioned. Nico Goosen spoke about the true North Star, and we took that back home with us. Link your work to strategy, Zahir said, and fit for purpose or don't do it at all, Cecilia shared. And we went back and we applied our learnings and we introduced concepts like user journey mappings, personas, OKRs, flip every single thing that you can think of out of any Agile book. We've tried that. It still didn't land the message. It still didn't hit the mark. So we needed to do something slightly differently. We needed to look one level deeper. We even looked at Geshido's virtue number 3 by only measuring the right stuff. And we stopped rewarding or, for lack of a better word, punishing people when your flow metrics are not correct. We were also there. Like, you were there, and you were also there. You felt it. So don't look at me funny. But is it possible, though, that there was something else brewing in the background? Is it possible that as Capitec, we might have grown faster than what our people can keep up with? And I think this is where the real crux lies. The simple answer is yes. So what now? We want to share with you some of the things that we've done over the past 2 years to help us bridge this gap.
So maybe to go back a little bit further, from a PMO perspective, we used to have a PMO in the business, first in IT, then in business, which evolved into an APMO, and then about a year ago, we launched a centralized delivery enablement function. The centralized delivery enablement function is committed to enable our teams to deliver through a commitment of simplicity and efficiency. We've mentioned a lot of methodologies, there's a lot of practices, there's a lot of things we've tried and tested, but we went back to say, how can we keep it simple for our teams and really make them focus on the outcomes we would like to achieve? Our delivery enablement function comprises of 3 areas, namely project management, delivery enablement, which is the Agile and Scrum Mastery disciplines, and then change management. And as I mentioned, our goal is simple. We would like to provide teams to enable optimal and efficient delivery by equipping our teams with the right practices and tools and a simplified way of work. Thank you. Our way of work we've developed is based on 5 principles and 22 delivery practices. And the way of work is really there to provide principles that all teams can apply, irrespective of the maturity of the teams, irrespective of whether it's a business or an IT team. It's there to create a solid foundation for successful delivery. It's also there to aim to get the teams to get a quicker translation from strategy to delivery, which we'll talk to a bit more in the next couple of slides. We aim to minimize risk and optimize for efficiency and also help to onboard new starters more quicker. These is an illustration of the 5 principles that we've got and on which we've based our way of work. And there's 22 supporting practices that we'll go through at a very high level. But firstly, every team should have a business strategy. As I mentioned, irrespective of whether it's a business or an IT team, irrespective of the team's maturity, there should be a business strategy that can get translated into delivery roadmaps. Teams should do business planning, and the business plans are living documents that needs to be translated into delivery roadmaps or delivery plans. There's prioritized delivery backlogs that are integrated delivery backlogs, which should cater for functional and non-functional requirements, and that should be prioritized constantly to make sure it reflects the right priorities and that we continuously focus on the right things. Then there's solution quality, which focuses on solution and engineering quality that is done according to the set and agreed standards coming from the respective centers of mastery. And then last but not least is compliance and risk management that should be applied throughout all the delivery practices. We're quickly going to go through the 22 delivery practices that support these 5 principles, and these are broken up into 3 categories. At the first level, you'll see the strategic practices, which are things like defining your product goals, understanding your client need, having business planning that we mentioned, having product goal prioritization, doing continuous planning, having your roadmaps, capacity planning and monitoring reporting. Underneath each of these, we've documented how you can execute on it, what templates can you use, but the important thing is the outcomes we want to achieve. So we're not prescriptive on how you should do it, when you should do it. Each team must implement it in a fit-for-purpose manner. What is important is the outcomes that we would like to achieve with each of these practices. The second category is the product and project category. We'll see a lot of the project practices and product practices, which is a breakdown of the goals. How are we going to deliver on the goals? So we'll break those down into the capabilities and features. And again, there's some practices that guide the process here, like backlog prioritization, solution design, release planning, people change management, which is often forgotten, monitoring and reporting. And then the more specific project practices like project kickoffs, project closeout, monitoring, reporting, and stakeholder identification. And then the third category is the team level practices. Then you break down the capabilities and features to your stories and your task. And we've tried to keep it really simple at the team level. You'll see there's 5 practices we've identified there. Again, backlog prioritization and refinement, team planning and daily syncs or stand-ups, continuous improvement, and then monitoring and reporting, which is obviously important throughout all the categories. We went one step further to say how do these practices align to the Geshido virtues of visualize and make transparent, prioritize, sequence and execute, measure and monitor, and improve and involve, and they quite easily map to these virtues. The next slide is just a quick illustration of that, of how you can see the mapping playing out. But again, what is important is not the 22 practices or the 5 principles, but it's really the roles and responsibilities that support delivering on these and translating from strategy to the team level. And one very key role that we've identified in this process is the role of the analyst.
Every organization, is it on? Every organization has bold strategies that are designed to drive innovation, capture markets, and elevate customer experiences. But it's really turning these ambitions into real impactful measures is where the real challenge lies. And it's no different for us at Capitec. We struggle with it too. In our fast-paced and complex business environment, bridging this gap was no longer a thing that we could ignore. It was mission critical. And it's not about adding more technology to our already crowded systems and processes, but really about the effective alignment of strategic outcomes with delivery. We really want to emphasize, we'll just continue. We really want to emphasize that the synergy between strategy and execution is crucial for success. A strategy on its own and execution on its own cannot drive success. Misalignment, poor communication, and lack of clarity often stands as barriers between a well-planned strategy and successful delivery. Strategic goals often remain abstract, leaving our delivery teams uncertain of what priorities are and what outcomes they are aiming for. Without clear and actionable requirements, we risk losing valuable time on rework, misaligned features that actually do not even meet business goals at the end of the day. Effective alignment between strategy and execution ultimately means that every initiative drives measurable outcomes and supports the broader goals of the organization. This alignment, however, doesn't just happen automatically. It needs to be purposefully orchestrated with intent. And this is where you come in, our analysts. I'll speak a little bit more about the analyst. At the heart of this connection is the role of the analyst, who are the architects of clarity, turning those lofty goals into actionable, deliverable stories. We see our analysts as the navigators who bridge the gap between business stakeholders, who are the visionaries for defining strategic goals, and the coders who actually turn those things into reality at the bottom layer. So we encourage our analysts to apply the four following practices that you've already seen, unfortunately. So there's no secret there. Might as well just bring all of them up, should I not? There we go. First of all, translating those high-level requirements into and really challenging each objective by asking the critical why behind every strategy. We want our analysts to create the spaces for productive conversation so that all stakeholders are aligned on the goals, the strategy, what we're trying to aim for, and really reducing the risk of rework. At the crux of it, we want our analysts to be able to translate those strategic goals into a language that our developers can understand and actually build on. Ultimately, creating traceability. Our analysts are not just facilitators. They are enablers, ensuring that what starts off as a strategic goal doesn't get lost in translation, but transforms into deliverable outcomes that drive business success. To achieve this, analysts need to really harness the power of collaboration as their superpower. By fostering open communication, facilitating meaningful discussions, and driving consensus, analysts become the critical link between strategy and execution. This ensures that our development teams know exactly what it is they need to build, why they need to build it, and when it's expected for this thing to be delivered. So I suppose it's one thing to have all of these practices in place. There still remains one question. How do we really know whether or not our analysts are doing the right stuff? How do we know that we can measure them to some extent? And for us, it's certainly not having a ticket in an active sprint doing analysis. No, that's not how we want to do it. We want to move beyond that. Success is not just about delivering the outputs, but it's really about achieving the outcomes that matter at the end of the day. And we can only do this by getting continuous feedback, being adaptable, and continuously inspecting and adapting. Ultimately, success for us is when our stakeholders trust the process, delivery teams operate with clarity, and strategic goals materialize into tangible results. So the question really isn't whether or not our analysts are doing the work, but really, are they making a meaningful difference by doing the right stuff? That's the real measure of success. And whilst there are many ways to measure the success of our analysts, we just want to share 4 key metrics that have helped us, which could potentially help you. First of all, requirements accuracy. This refers to the measure of effectiveness of our analysts based on how effective they are at implementing a particular requirement and how developers have perceived that requirement and how successful that's been delivered into production. Stakeholder satisfaction, which is a gauge between stakeholders or with many stakeholders in terms of how satisfied they are, how challenged they felt with an analyst being in their space, understanding the product they're trying to develop, and how successful that language got translated to delivery teams. Alignment with strategic goals, self-exploratory, ensuring that what starts off as a strategic goal, even at the lowest level, we can align a story, if that's the language that you prefer to use, how that's aligned to a sprint goal, aligned to a quarterly goal, aligned to a 1-year outcomes, or a 1 to 3-year outcomes. And the defect rate, which refers to the number of defects that we find in our already developed and built products. A lower defect rate often means a higher success rate of the analyst. Reflecting on the last 4 key practices that I shared, here's just some of the things that have worked for us. We're not saying that go do this stuff. These are just things that work for us. So if you think about the practice of decoding strategic goals, we encourage our analysts to have face-to-face stakeholder conversations and interviews. Even better if it's face-to-face with a picture. We encourage them to use vision boards, whether those are digital or physical boards in the office, and make use of OKRs. And I really want to emphasize the use of objectives and key results because it's such a powerful tool. It can be applied at a 1 to 3 year outcomes level, but why not apply it at a sprint level? Because it's a language that brings people together and people can understand what it is we're trying to achieve. If we think about facilitating collaboration, make use of whiteboards. Be in the office or make use of digital whiteboards if you must. User journey mappings with personas, collaborative story writing, and creating traceability. Jira, Confluence, and many other tools in the Atlassian suite is our preferred tools to use to help us as the central source of truth for all work. In short, if it's not on Jira, we don't know about it, we won't work on it. As a closing statement from my side, strategic goals are absolutely meaningless without execution. And execution will always fly blind without a strategy. As analysts, and this role is often fulfilled by many, many job titles, such as a business analyst, sometimes a systems analyst, sometimes a solution or domain architect, sometimes a product owner or product manager. We are the analysts. Repeat after me, I am the analyst. I can't hear you. Repeat, I am the analyst. You are the unsung heroes in your value chain. So whether you are strategizing at the top layer or whether you are coding at the bottom layer, remember the role that you play as analysts on this journey in creating value, turning what is an idea into what is real.
As Linden mentioned, strategy doesn't mean much if you can't execute on the strategy. Here are 3 key takeouts that we would like you to take back to your organizations around the role of the analyst. Acknowledge the importance of analysis at all levels. Empower your analysts with the right platforms and tools. And no matter where you are in your journey as a team, make sure what you implement is fit for purpose. Keep it simple. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it.